The desperate plea, the last hope. The great assembly hall of Nexus Prime had never seen such desperation. Representatives from 15 different species sat in emergency session, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of fear that echoed through the crystalline chambers. At the center podium stood Ambassador Kale, his blue-scaled skin glistening with the moisture his nereid physiology required. His large dark eyes swept across the assembled delegates as he delivered news that chilled every being present. "The Kepler colonies have fallen," Kale announced, his voice carrying the weight of billions of lost lives. "The mining stations at asteroid belt Gamma 7 were consumed 3 days ago. The Void Swarm continues its advance toward our core worlds." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the chittering folk, known for their constant nervous clicking, fell completely quiet. The enemy, from beyond the Void Swarm, defied easy description. They were not a single species, but rather a collective horror that consumed everything in their path. Part organic, part machine, they swept through space like a plague of locusts, leaving nothing but empty shells of worlds behind. Their ships, if they could be called ships, were living things that fed on energy itself. They absorbed weapons fire, grew stronger from each attack, and multiplied with terrifying speed. Dr. Yiln, the chief xenobiologist of the crystalline luminar species, activated a holographic display showing the swarm's recent conquests. Her body pulsed with nervous light patterns as she spoke. "Our analysis confirms what we feared most. The swarm adapts to every weapon system we deploy against them. They have consumed 14 colony worlds in the past month alone. Conservative estimates suggest they will reach our primary systems within 6 weeks." The Urside delegate, Commander Tharn, stood to his full 3-meter height. His bear-like features were grim as he reported, "My people's war fleets engaged them at the Meridian sector. We lost 80% of our ships before we could even damage a single swarm vessel. They turned our own energy weapons against us, somehow converting our plasma cannons into feeding mechanisms. The search for allies. For weeks, the Zephyrian Alliance had sent desperate pleas across the galaxy, seeking aid from any civilization powerful enough to stand against the swarm. The responses had been uniformly disappointing. The mighty hegemony of Arcturus had sent formal condolences along with a notice that they were closing their borders. The ancient collective had simply gone silent, retreating to their hidden strongholds beyond the galactic rim. Even the warlike Crimson Empire had declined to engage, stating that they preferred opponents they could actually defeat. "We are alone," said Elder Voss of the plant-like Sylvan Confederation. Her ancient voice rustled like leaves in a dying wind. "Every major power in the galaxy has abandoned us to our fate. Perhaps it is time to consider evacuation of our remaining worlds." "And go where?" demanded Ambassador Kale, his voice cracking with emotion. "The swarm follows energy signatures. Our ships, our technology, even our life signs draw them like beacons. There is nowhere in the galaxy they cannot track us." A glimmer of hope. In the communications center beneath the assembly hall, senior technician Zara worked frantically at her quantum relay station. The young officer belonged to the Vex species, silicon-based beings known for their exceptional technical abilities. Her 6 arms moved in perfect coordination across multiple control surfaces as she broadcast the Alliance's distress signal to increasingly distant star systems. "Still nothing from the Outer Rim Confederacy," she reported to her supervisor, Chief Communications Officer Reln. "The Stellar Republic acknowledges receipt but maintains their neutrality stance. The Independent Worlds Coalition wishes us luck but cannot spare any forces." Reln, a dignified member of the telepathic Mindari race, projected his frustration directly into Zara's consciousness. "Keep trying. Broadcast to every system in our database, no matter how remote or primitive. At this point, even a single additional ship might make a difference." Zara's lower hands continued standard diplomatic channels while her upper arms worked on something else entirely. She had been experimenting with older, broader spectrum transmission protocols, sending simplified versions of their distress call to star systems that barely registered on galactic civilization maps. Most of these signals vanished into empty space, but occasionally she received automated responses from planets that had only just achieved basic spaceflight. "Chief Reln," Zara called out suddenly, her voice crackling with excitement. I'm receiving a response from the Sol system. Location, Orion Arm, Sector 7G. It's barely 200 light-years from here, but I've never heard of them. Reln floated over to her station, his translucent form shimmering with curiosity. Sol system? Show me their civilization rating. Zara's face fell as she pulled up the data. That's, odd. According to Galactic records, they achieved spaceflight only about 500 years ago. They're classified as a pre-interstellar species. Humans, they call themselves. The response might just be an automated curiosity signal. What exactly did they transmit? Reln asked. Zara played back the message, and a new voice filled the communications center. It was unlike any they had heard before, not the musical tones of the Nereid, the harmonic crystals of the Luminar, or the subsonic rumbles of the Ursidae. This voice was distinctly organic, carrying emotional undertones that seemed to resonate with primal protective instincts. Zephyrian Alliance. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Terran Deep Space Command. We have received your distress signal regarding the entity you call the Void Swarm. Message acknowledged and understood. Coordinates locked. Help is on the way. First contact. The simplicity of the message stunned both technicians. No political deliberation, no requests for additional information, no demands for payment or territorial concessions. Just immediate acceptance and a promise of aid. Chief, Zara whispered. They're requesting a direct communication channel. They want to talk to whoever's in charge. Within minutes, Ambassador Kale stood before the quantum communicator in the Alliance's main diplomatic suite. The holographic projector flickered to life, revealing the image of a human female. Captain Rodriguez appeared to be middle-aged by galactic standards, with dark hair pulled back in a practical manner and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a simple uniform that was clearly military in nature, but lacked the ostentatious decorations favored by most galactic civilizations. Ambassador Kyle, Captain Rodriguez said, somehow pronouncing his name correctly despite never having heard it before. I understand your people are facing an extinction-level threat. Captain Rodriguez, Kale replied formally. I must be honest with you. The Void Swarm has destroyed entire fleets from some of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Your species, while clearly brave, may not possess the technology necessary to— With respect, Ambassador, Rodriguez interrupted. You called for help. We're offering it. Our analysts have reviewed the data you transmitted about this swarm. We've seen enemies like this before. Dr. Yiln, who had been listening from the side, stepped forward. Captain, our records indicate your species has never encountered anything like the Void Swarm. How could you possibly have faced similar threats? Rodriguez's expression grew serious. Doctor, in the past 1,000 years, humanity has faced extinction 17 times. Plague, natural disasters, wars that nearly destroyed our entire planet, and things that came from beyond our world. We're still here because we learned one fundamental truth. When something threatens your family, you don't negotiate with it. You destroy it completely. The impossible promise. The communication continued for nearly an hour as Captain Rodriguez asked detailed questions about the swarm's capabilities, the Alliance's defensive positions, and the civilian populations that needed protection. Her queries demonstrated a level of tactical thinking that impressed even the military representatives present. Captain, Commander Tharn interjected, I must ask directly, how many ships can your people provide? Even our combined fleets of over 3,000 vessels proved inadequate against the swarm. Rodriguez paused for a moment, and when she spoke again, there was something in her voice that made every being in the room lean forward. Commander, Earth doesn't maintain a standing military in the way galactic civilizations do. We have exploration, fleets, research vessels, and peacekeeping forces. But when our home or our friends are threatened, every ship becomes a warship, every citizen becomes a soldier, and every resource gets mobilized for one purpose. But how many ships? Pressed Elder Voss. Ma'am, Rodriguez replied, Earth's Deep Space Command can have 800 vessels ready for combat operations within 72 hours. Our Colonial Defense Force can provide another 600. The Merchant Marine has volunteered their entire fleet. That's roughly 400 heavy cargo vessels that we can convert to support roles. And if we need more? She paused, looking directly at Kale. Ambassador, how long would it take to evacuate your non-combatant populations to safe zones? The question caught everyone off guard. Evacuate? Kyle stammered. Captain, there are no safe zones. The swarm tracks all energy signatures. Our only options are fight or die. Rodriguez's expression hardened. Then we'll make safe zones. Humanity has never lost a war where we were protecting our family. And as of right now, the Zephyrian Alliance is family. The fleet mobilizes. The call went out across human space within minutes of the communication ending. From the bustling orbital shipyards above Earth to the frontier colonies on the edge of known space, humanity responded with a unity that defied galactic understanding of how civilizations operated. Admiral Marcus Chen received the alert while inspecting the Mars defense grid. Within an hour, he was aboard the flagship Indomitable, coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. The response wasn't just military. Civilian contractors worked around the clock to retrofit merchant vessels with defensive systems, medical ships prepared for mass casualty scenarios, and supply vessels loaded with everything from ammunition to food rations for refugee populations. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's leading xenobiologist, found herself assigned to the hastily formed Alien Relations Division. Her job was to ensure human forces could effectively coordinate with 15 different species, each with their own communication methods, cultural taboos, and biological needs. The Alliance species breathe oxygen-nitrogen atmospheres similar to Earth standard, she reported to Admiral Chen during a briefing aboard the Indomitable. But we need to account for the Nereid moisture requirements, the luminar need for specific light frequencies, and the chittering folks' sensitivity to certain sound ranges. Make it work, Doctor, Chen replied simply. These people asked for help and we gave our word. Departure. 71 hours after first contact, the human fleet assembled at the edge of Sol system was a sight that would have amazed any galactic observer. Unlike the sleek uniform fleets of most civilizations, the human armada was a patchwork of designs and purposes united by a single goal. Military vessels bristled with weapons that seemed crude by galactic standards but were engineered with a ruthless efficiency that spoke to centuries of warfare. Cargo ships had been hastily armed and armored, transforming merchant vessels into improvised warships. Medical frigates carried enough supplies to treat millions of casualties, while massive supply ships contained everything needed to support extended operations far from home. At the fleet's heart sat the Indomitable, Admiral Chen's flagship. The vessel was a testament to human engineering philosophy. Not the most elegant ship ever built, but functional, reliable, and powerful enough to serve as the command center for humanity's largest military operation. All ships report ready for hyperspace transition, announced Commander Lisa Park, the fleet's operations officer. Estimated travel time to Alliance space, 6 days. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge, looking out at the assembled fleet through the main viewer. Behind him, the blue-white marble of Earth slowly rotated, a reminder of what they were fighting to protect. Not just their own world, but the principle that no species should face extinction alone. Signal the Zephyrian Alliance, Chen ordered. Message begins. This is Admiral Marcus Chen commanding the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We are en route to your coordinates. Maintain defensive positions and protect your civilians. The cavalry is coming. Message ends. As the massive fleet engaged their hyperspace drives and vanished into the void, a single thought echoed through the quantum communications network that connected every human ship. They were no longer just fighting for Earth. They were fighting for family they had never met but had chosen to protect. And humanity had never failed when family was at stake. The Zephyrian Alliance was about to discover what it meant when Earth answered the call. The human response arrival at the front lines. The hyperspace emergence of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet above Nexus Prime created sensor readings that initially caused panic among Alliance forces. Over 1,400 human vessels materialized in perfect formation, their emergence sending ripples through local spacetime that registered on every detector within 3 star systems. The sheer scale of the response left Alliance observers speechless. Ambassador Kale stood in the observation deck of Nexus Prime's orbital command station, watching the human fleet take position. Unlike the elegant curves and artistic designs favored by most galactic civilizations, human ships possessed a brutal functionality that was somehow beautiful in its efficiency. Each vessel looked like it had been designed by engineers who understood that form followed function, and the primary function was ending threats to Earth and her allies. Nexus Prime Command, this is Admiral Chen aboard the Indomitable, came the transmission, requesting permission to establish forward command operations and begin immediate threat assessment. Dr. Yiln materialized beside Kale, her crystalline form pulsing with amazed light patterns. Ambassador, I'm reading energy signatures I don't recognize. Their ships are generating power levels comparable to our planetary defense grids, but the technology appears to be based on principles I've never encountered. What kind of principles? Kyle asked, his aquatic nature making him naturally curious about new technologies. Controlled fusion reactions that seem stable beyond anything we've achieved. Kinetic acceleration systems that defy our understanding of mass-energy relationships, and some kind of defensive field that appears to bend space-time itself. Doctor, Yiln's light patterns shifted to deep blues indicating confusion. Ambassador, their ships shouldn't be able to function according to our understanding of physics, but they're clearly operational and highly advanced. Meeting the humans, Admiral Chen's shuttle docked with Nexus Prime 6 hours after fleet arrival. The human delegation consisted of only 12 individuals, but their presence seemed to fill the entire docking bay. Chen himself was a man of average height with graying hair and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of his surroundings. He moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command, but without the arrogance typical of galactic military leaders. Beside him walked Dr. Sarah Kim, whose quick eyes darted between the various alien species gathered to greet them. She carried a small device that appeared to be analyzing atmospheric composition, gravity fields, and biological signatures simultaneously. The rest of the human delegation consisted of specialists whose functions weren't immediately obvious, but who all shared the same alert, professional demeanor. Ambassador Kale, Admiral Chen said, stepping forward with his hand extended in the universal human greeting. Thank you for trusting us with your people's safety. I understand the situation is critical. Kale carefully took the offered hand, noting the firm but not crushing grip. Admiral, I must confess that your response has exceeded our wildest hopes. We expected perhaps a small task force, not a fleet that rivals the combined navies of entire sectors. When someone asks Earth for help, Chen replied simply, we don't send just enough. We send whatever it takes to win. Dr. Kim stepped forward, her scanner device chirping softly as it analyzed the assembled Alliance representatives. Admiral, we should establish immediate communication protocols with all Alliance species. Our xenolinguistics team needs to ensure perfect coordination during combat operations. Within hours, the human specialist had established working relationships with their Alliance counterparts. The humans approached interspecies cooperation with a systematic efficiency that amazed the Alliance observers. Where other galactic civilizations required weeks of diplomatic protocols and cultural exchanges, the humans simply asked what needed to be done and began doing it. Understanding the enemy. The Joint Command Center established aboard the Indomitable buzzed with activity as Alliance experts briefed their human counterparts on the Void Swarm threat. Holographic displays showed the swarm's path of destruction, while tactical analysis revealed the horrifying adaptability that had made them unstoppable. The critical factor, explained Commander Tharn, is their ability to absorb and redirect energy. Our most powerful weapons actually make them stronger. Plasma cannons become feeding mechanisms, particle beams get converted to propulsion systems, and kinetic weapons are simply consumed and metabolized. Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays with the focused attention of a predator analyzing prey. Dr. Martinez, he called to his chief science officer, preliminary assessment. Dr. Elena Martinez, a woman with the weathered look of someone who had spent years solving impossible problems, manipulated the holographic controls to isolate specific swarm characteristics. Admiral, the Alliance analysis is accurate but incomplete. Yes, the swarm absorbs directed energy, But they're not violating conservation laws. They're redirecting and storing energy, which means they have limits. What kind of limits? Asked Elder Voss, her plant-like form rustling with interest. Storage capacity, processing speed, and most importantly, response time. Dr. Martinez highlighted several data points in the holographic display. When the swarm encounters a new energy type, there's a brief adaptation period. The Alliance forces haven't been able to exploit this because they use similar technologies. Humans, however, approach warfare differently. Admiral Chen's slight smile was predatory. Show them, Doctor. Dr. Martinez activated a secondary display showing human weapon systems. We still use kinetic weapons, not particle beams or plasma cannons, but actual physical projectiles accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. We employ chemical explosives, nuclear warheads, and something we call directed gravity weapons that create localized space-time distortions. Dr. Yiln's crystalline form flashed with excitement. These technologies are primitive by galactic standards, but if the swarm hasn't encountered them, they'll need time to adapt to each new weapon system, Admiral Chen finished. And we won't give them that time. The battle plan, the strategy session that followed, demonstrated why humanity had survived every extinction-level threat they had encountered. Human tactical thinking was unlike anything the Alliance had experienced. Where galactic civilizations favored elegant solutions and minimal casualties, humans planned for total victory through overwhelming application of force. The Alliance defensive strategy has been to hold choke points and limit swarm access to populated systems, Admiral Chen explained to the assembled commanders. This is tactically sound but strategically flawed. You're fighting a defensive war against an enemy that grows stronger with every battle. What alternative do we have? Asked Commander Tharn. Our combined fleets are insufficient to mount an offensive against the swarm's main force. Commander, you're thinking like the swarm expects you to think. Admiral Chen manipulated the tactical display to show the entire local galactic region. The swarm advances along predictable paths, consuming energy sources and growing stronger, but they're also extending their supply lines and spreading their forces across multiple star systems. Captain Elena Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing from the side, stepped forward. The human approach is simple. We don't fight the swarm where they're strong. We make them fight where we're strong. Dr. Kim activated her portable display unit, showing detailed scans of swarm vessels. Our analysis indicates the individual swarm units are connected through some form of quantum entanglement network. They share information instantaneously across vast distances, but this connection also creates vulnerability. What kind of vulnerability? Ambassador Kale asked. Feedback loops, Admiral Chen replied grimly. If we can overload their communication network with contradictory information, we can cause system-wide failures. But it requires precise coordination and overwhelming firepower applied simultaneously across multiple targets. The trap is set. The Battle of Kepler's Gate began 3 days later, when long-range sensors detected a massive swarm formation approaching the Alliance's primary defensive line. Over 200 swarm vessels, each the size of a small moon, advanced in perfect formation toward the assembled Alliance fleet. It was the largest swarm force ever recorded, and according to every tactical analysis, it should have been unstoppable. Ambassador Kale watched from the command center aboard Indomitable as the battle formations took shape. The Alliance fleet, reinforced by human vessels, held defensive positions around the Kepler Gate jump point. On paper, the combined force was still outnumbered 3-1 by an enemy that had never been defeated in open battle. "Admiral," called Commander Park from her operations station, "all human vessels report ready. Alliance fleets confirm defensive positions. The swarm formation will enter weapons range in 12 minutes. "Very good," Admiral Chen replied calmly. "Signal all commands. Operation Thunderstrike is authorized. Execute on my mark." What happened next redefined everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Instead of waiting for the swarm to attack, the human fleet struck first. But they didn't attack the main swarm formation. Simultaneously, across 17 different star systems, human strike forces materialized from hyperspace and engaged isolated swarm units. Each attack was precisely calculated to overwhelm local swarm forces before they could adapt to human weapons. Kinetic bombardments shattered swarm hulls. Nuclear warheads created localized energy spikes that overloaded absorption systems, and gravity weapons literally tore apart the space-time fabric that held swarm vessels together. The network collapses. The effect on the main swarm force at Kepler's Gate was immediate and catastrophic. As their distributed network received contradictory damage reports from multiple simultaneous attacks, the quantum entanglement communication system began experiencing cascading failures. Individual swarm vessels lost coordination, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos as each unit tried to process impossible amounts of conflicting information. "Now!" Admiral Chen commanded. The combined Alliance human fleet opened fire with everything they possessed. Alliance energy weapons, previously ineffective against adapted swarm defenses, now found targets whose defensive systems were offline or contradicting each other. Human kinetic weapons punched through swarm hulls like paper, while nuclear detonations created expanding spheres of destruction that consumed multiple swarm vessels simultaneously. But it was the human gravity weapons that truly amazed the Alliance observers. These devices, which manipulated space-time itself, created localized distortions that literally unraveled the quantum bonds holding swarm vessels together. Entire sections of the enemy formation simply ceased to exist, their matter scattered across multiple dimensions. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Yiln, watching her sensors register the systematic destruction of an enemy that had been unstoppable for decades. "They're destroying them faster than the swarm can adapt." "That's the point," replied Dr. Kim from her position at the xenobiology station. Human warfare doctrine is based on a simple principle: hit the enemy so hard and so fast that they don't have time to respond. We call it shock and awe, victory and understanding. The Battle of Kepler's Gate lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, the swarm force that should have conquered the Alliance core worlds was completely destroyed. Not a single swarm vessel escaped to report on human capabilities or adapt to human weapons. More importantly, the simultaneous attacks across 17 systems had severed the swarm's communication network, leaving their remaining forces isolated and vulnerable. In the aftermath, as rescue ships moved to assist damaged Alliance vessels and recovery teams began analyzing swarm wreckage, the true scope of humanity's response became clear. The humans hadn't just sent a military force, they had brought mobile hospitals, supply ships, construction vessels, and even entertainment facilities for Alliance personnel. "Admiral," Ambassador Kale said during the post-battle briefing, "I must ask directly, why did your people do this? Earth has no territorial interests in our space, no trade agreements with our species, no strategic benefit from our survival. Why risk your entire fleet for strangers?" Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and Alliance vessels working together to clear the battlefield. "Ambassador, there's something about humans that other species don't seem to understand. We form pack bonds, not just with our own kind, but with anyone we consider family. The moment you asked for help, you became our family. And humans never abandon family." Dr. Kim nodded agreement. "It's not rational by galactic standards. We could have ignored your signal, remained safely in our own space, and avoided this entire conflict. But that's not who we are. When someone asks Earth for help, we answer. When someone threatens our family, we destroy the threat completely." The new Alliance 6 months later, the last scattered swarm forces had been systematically hunted down and destroyed by combined human Alliance task forces. The threat that had terrorized the galaxy for decades was ended, not through negotiation or containment, but through the simple human approach of identifying the problem and eliminating it completely. The Zephyrian Alliance expanded to include Earth and her colonies, but the relationship was unlike any other in galactic history. Rather than the typical arrangement of dominant and subordinate civilizations, humans integrated as equals who brought unique capabilities to the partnership. Alliance species contributed advanced technology and scientific knowledge, while humans provided military expertise and a protective umbrella that extended across all member worlds. Ambassador Kale, now serving as the Alliance's chief diplomatic representative to Earth, often reflected on that first desperate communication. Humanity had responded to a stranger's call for help with overwhelming force, unlimited resources, and a commitment that transcended rational self-interest. They had asked for nothing in return, except the opportunity to protect beings they had never met. The galaxy thought humans were primitive, he said during a joint council session. They were wrong. Humans are not primitive, they are fundamental. They represent the basic principles that make civilization possible: loyalty, protection of the innocent, and the absolute refusal to abandon those who trust them. Admiral Chen, now commanding the joint defense forces of the expanded alliance, smiled at the ambassador's words. "We prefer to think of it simply, Ambassador. When someone calls for help, Earth answers. When someone threatens our family, we remind them why that's a very bad idea. It's not complicated. It's just who we are." The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. When you asked for reinforcements, humanity didn't just bring a fleet. They brought a promise that no enemy would ever again threaten those under Earth's protection. And humanity always kept their promises.